Good evening, everyone. Swarthmore Borough Council's legislative session, Tuesday, November 12th, 2019, is now in session. Doing a quick roll call, I see all members of council are present and accounted for. I know the borough manager, Jamie Ellis, is here as well, and Borough Solicitor Bob Scott is not feeling well this evening. So, it is my pleasure to announce that the first item on the agenda this evening is the swearing in of our new Swarthmore Borough Police Officer, George Dunn, and our Mayor, Marty Spiegel, will do the swearing in. Marty? You did it.
Great to see all these people here. Full house. I'm sure you're going to stay for the whole meeting. Well, maybe not. George, if you'll join me up here. I have the honor and the privilege of being able to administer the oath of office to George as our newest member of the Swarthmore Police Department, and I will do so now. And after the meeting, after the swearing in, I believe there's going to be a reception downstairs in the police department, to which all of you are invited. So let me put my glasses on. And George, if you'll raise your right hand, put your left hand on the, and we can stand this way so that David can see us. And repeat after me. I, George Dunn.
I, George Dunn.
Do swear that I will support, obey, and defend
Do swear that I support, obey, and defend
the Constitution and the laws of the United States,
the Constitution, the laws of the United States,
the Commonwealth of
the
Pennsylvania,
Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the ordinance of the Borough of Swarthmore,
and the ordinance of the Borough of Swarthmore.
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
That I will faithfully discharge the duties
of my office as police officer
as my office as police officer
for the Swarthmore Borough,
for the Swarthmore Borough.
and I will uphold, obey, and
I will
enforce
uphold, obey, and enforce
the law without consideration
the law without consideration
of a person's race,
of a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age, national origin,
national origin,
ancestry, handicap, or disability.
handicap, or disability.
I will obey the rules and regulations,
I will obey the rules and regulations,
policies and procedures
policies, and procedures
governing sworn members of the Swarthmore Police
governing the
Department.
sworn members of the Swarthmore Police Department.
Also, I will not knowingly accept,
Also, I will not knowingly accept,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
any money
any money
or other valuable thing
or other valuable things
for the performance or
for the
non-performance
performance or non-performance
of any act or duty
of any act or duty
pertaining to my office,
pertaining to my office,
other than such compensation
other than such compensation
as may be allowed by the Swarthmore Borough Council.
as may be allowed by the Swarthmore Borough Council.
Having duly sworn you as a police officer, I welcome you to the Swarthmore Borough Council. And as kind of your official, as our official appointment, there's your badge.
Last opportunity for any photo ops, if anyone would like to take any.
Would the family like to?
Yeah. Anyone that would like to have
Please.
pictures?
Oh, that's his entire.
Now's the time.
I can't get them all. It's like, go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you.
public comment period. Is there any member of the public that would care to address council at this time? Please come forward.
Hi, Chris Reynolds, not a Swarthmore, feel like one after 4.5 years at the Swarthmore meeting. I wanted to thank you all for making my job easier and helping us communicate with people you serve and the people we serve. I appreciate your grace and assistance in handling some of the more cryptic aspects of the work of council. My successor will be here for the next meeting. She is, if you don't know, Rachel Castle, who does live in Swarthmore, and is a writer of some renown, but not renowned so much for her nonfiction. So we'll see how it goes. We spent some time together this week, and I think she's going to be terrific. So good luck to you, and thank you for your help.
Thank you, Chris, and good luck to you as well.
Thanks.
All right, this is the time for the President's report, and first of all, I want to extend my congratulations to Mary Walk and Russ Schmucky for their re-election to Borough Council, and also to our newly elected council member, Joe Gajewski, and of course to our mayor, Marty Spiegel, who was also elected. I'll have to congratulate, well, I've already congratulated him, but we'll do it again later. And I thought now might be an appropriate time just to remind folks of what will happen in January. Every 2 years, council goes through a reorganization, and there'll be a reorganizational meeting, which will be Monday, January 6, 2020. It'll be the first council meeting of the new council. The way it will work this time around, and it's been like this before, is because we have a newly elected mayor, as well as newly elected council members, we'll have, and I think Jane is already, or will be making arrangements to have district magistrate Kroll here. And the first order of business will be to swear in the new mayor, Marty Spiegel.
I'm giving you a look, because didn't she just get elected to a mayor?
No, that was Stephanie Klein.
She got elected to a mayor.
So once Marty is sworn in, he will then have his 5 minutes to run Borough Council, and he will conduct the election of the new president of the council. Once the new president is sworn in, the president will then conduct the elections for vice president and president pro tem, and may also make some committee assignments at that time, and then business will resume as usual. And Jane's been through this a lot, and so has Bob Scott, so they'll be here to, make sure that things go smoothly. Next order of business for me is the consideration of the council meeting minutes of October 15th and November 4th. Would anyone be willing to make a motion to approve those minutes as drafted?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion, any changes, amendments, edits, either of those sets of minutes? If none, let's have a vote. All in favor of approving council meeting minutes of October 15, 2019 and November 4th, 2019 as drafted, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Next order of business, Environment Committee. Warren?
Yes, the Environment Committee did not meet, and we're not actually meeting in November either. However, I'm encouraging our Environment Committee, Michael and Sarah, to attend the EAC meeting, which is Tuesday, November 26th, and they're having a discussion about the Ready for 100 campaign that I think it would be very important for us to hear about. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Warren. I'm going to take the agenda a little bit out of order this evening. We're going to move the Finance Committee's report and budget discussion down to the end of our meeting. And so next up would be General Government. Sarah.
Sure. So I don't have any committee report to make, but I do have
approval of free parking Fridays here on the agenda, and I think we brought that up at the last meeting that as has been what we've been doing for the past, I don't know whether it's been more than 1 year, but last year we did it, I think maybe it was the year before, it was last year, the first year.
No, I think you're right. It's been a couple of years.
Okay, so for a couple of years, we've been having free parking on Fridays around the holiday season, from 11/29, so November 29th to December 27th, as free parking, I think from 10 a.m., I don't know, maybe it's from 10 a.m. It was either 10 or 11 until 5, until it's going to be enforced. And not excluding all 12-hour meters. And we wanted to make, there was talk about making this approved. We have to approve it as part of the council. We were thinking about, right, so we have to approve it now. There was some talk about maybe making it a resolution so that every year we would do that. But what we definitely need to do today is approve it for this season. So, so I need to make a motion to that. Right. So I'd like to make a motion to approve free parking Fridays from November 29th till December 27th, excluding 12-hour meters, and from, I think, 10 a.m. to on.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion of that motion? There being none, let's take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Great, thanks. And then I think maybe now would be the time also to talk about, we're considering changing the budget. We might have some budget implications for considering a raise in compensation for the borough manager. And so I don't know whether we want to talk about that here in the meeting before we discuss the budget, or if council feels like we should talk about it in executive session.
No, I think we can talk about it in the open meeting. And what I would propose is that I think we know the terms of what we're talking about. I would propose that some member of council make a motion, and we'll see if we get a second, then we'll have a discussion and see where we go from there. So, would you like to make a motion, sir?
I'm fine. Do you want to say something before?
I can do it, you know.
No, I'm fine to make a motion.
Don't, you can second.
No, I'm not.
Or vice versa?
I didn't want to put her on the spot.
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm not on the spot.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we increase the salary of the borough manager by $7,000.
Can I make a clarification?
Yes, please.
By increase the salary, you mean the base compensation, the amount of base compensation by $7,000. I think that needs to be clarified, just so that we know we're not talking about cost of living increases or something.
Right, we're talking about base.
Base, okay, all right.
What
What is it now? Would it be helpful to do it in
So right now, currently, the 2020 salary is budgeted after the cost of living increase at $109,315. And so this would move to $116,315.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Now's the time for discussion. Would anyone like to discuss or comment or have any questions? Ross?
For the public, I'd just like to note that the council, I think, really believes that our manager is an excellent manager. She's been recognized by the state association, and she has a high reputation among council members. And I would just note for the public that there was a point in time when the economy was down in 2009 when the manager's salary took a hit. So this is both in recognition of a merit raise, but also in part making up for the loss that the manager took at that time. That's my comment.
Thank you, Ross. Any other comments or questions? There being none, let's have a vote. All in favor of passing the motion as stated by Sarah Creighton, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're not going to be meeting this month. So.
All right. Next up, planning and zoning. Betsy?
Write that down, and I'll show up at the general government meeting. All right, back to resolution 21906, the reverse subdivision at 23 Meadow Lane, 345 Riverview Road. I guess at this time I would like to make a motion that we approve the reverse subdivision and lot line change at 23 Meadow Lane, 345 Riverview Road.
Second.
Any discussion?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. The motion carries.
Great. That being said, again, a reminder that planning and zoning will be meeting this Thursday, the 14th, at a different time at 5:30, and that is to discuss possible restrictions on short-term rentals, as well as our regular meeting.
Do you want to appoint one of the alternates to the zoning hearing board tonight, since we're down now, Rachel's term is up, or do you want to, because we do have a hearing coming up. We don't have to, because I think 3 of them said they would be there. I think one said, I'm looking.
Yeah,
I'll look at the list. Yeah.
And I would assume under the circumstances, since it was very short notice, that one of the alternates could vote as a board member.
I think it would be hard for the board, for those to decide those, since there's 2 alternates. It might be better if council's appointed one of them, and then the other one's going to be appointed in January anyway, so I don't know if you just want to go in alphabetical order or what.
I guess I could do that. I'd rather talk to them first, because I haven't had a chance to run that by them.
Then it probably won't matter until January then, because I don't think we'll have a hearing in
December.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. No, that would have been good, but I just would like to communicate with them before I just go ahead on that.
We'll make sure I'll ask the solicitor to investigate to make sure that they're operating correctly at that meeting on the 26th. I think that's when there's a hearing board meeting next with the 2 alternates.
All right, thank you.
Perfect, no problem.
Thanks, Betsy. Public safety, Mary.
Thank you, David. We will be meeting on Tuesday, November 19th at 7:30 p.m. here. And I did want to mention one other thing that is really not public safety related, but it's Marty related and borough related, so I'm going to stick it out there. I was contacted by the person who heads up PR at the county, telling me that county council is going to do something to recognize Small Business Saturday. So they were trying to get contact information for, in other words, does Swarthmore have a business association? And I told them, yes, they do, it's town center, and I gave them Marty's name, and I gave them Anita's name, and she's going to reach out to the 2 of them. So I don't know yet when that's going to be done, but it has to be soon. Hopefully it's not tomorrow at the council meeting, but at any rate, they're going to recognize Small Business Saturday, and our borough will be listed as somebody who participates in that. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Ross, Public Works, Parks and Recreation.
Okay, so last week I gave the committee report, so I'm not going to repeat that. And we will be meeting this month on November 21st at 8:30 in the morning. And the agenda item is the Senior Citizens Association suggestions about sidewalk repairs. And then we have 2 items tonight. One is the trash and recycling, and the other is repair of walls in Central Park. So the repair of the walls in Central Park, the manager can talk about that.
Sure, exactly. So we did get 2 bids for the repair of the walls in Central Park. I mean, we're not hugely different. We've met so far with the low bidder on the project, and I think I'd like to have a chance to check the references. We did give 60 days to award the bid, so it can be awarded in December. And after speaking with this particular contractor and learning a little bit more, I don't think we want to be pouring concrete anyway in December, so there's really no tearing hardly the notice to proceed with the after you award the bid. And that will still, the project will still be done well before the drop dead date, which is really the opening of the farmers market, and a check that they needed, that's not until May. So I just defer to make sure that all the references are checked before the bids.
So we're talking February, March, April.
Right. It's You need to be sure that you've got a spade of good weather. You could do one wall and then another wall. You don't have to tear the whole thing down at once. That'll be up to the contractor.
And then the other item is the trash and recycling. And so we have bids to talk about, and we have various things to talk about, and the manager can tee some of that up. I just want to say in terms of context, I was looking back at some of the history, and it was in April of 2018 that we received a letter from Republic Services, and they were saying, difficult things are happening. China is, not allowing recycling to come in. The whole market is changing. We have to increase surcharges from $1.72 per ton to $65 per ton. It was very dramatic, very concerning, and I'd just like to say I think the manager's done a great job of getting us to a good point, and you'll hear as you hear the proposals. So I think it was, the sky is falling at that time. Now I think we're actually making progress into a new mode of doing business, which is good at minimizing the cost. So that's just my framing of it. Do you want to go ahead?
Sure, I can discuss some. So remember the first bid proposal that went out was for trash collection and transportation to the transfer station, Delaware County run transfer station, collection of yard waste. And those were both as they've done in the past, which is we're paying basically for the truck to get here, pick the stuff up, and then we pay for the disposal fee. So a little side note that I told Ross today, the place that we've been sending our yard waste is now closing down as of January 1st. This is affecting the entire county. We all pretty much use the same spot. So we're all scrambling for a new place for that as well. But it was the recycling that was done a little bit differently. We did it in two different ways. And one was kind of to mimic the trash and yard waste. The B&L or whoever the low bidder is comes in, picks it up, takes it to wherever the processing facility is. And traditionally they've been paying that processing fee. So they're the ones who say they're paying $65 a ton. And they did bid on that option. It was called option 1 in the contract. I think you'll see it in that bid sheet. And they were charging a whopping huge $200 a ton. That was their hedge on what the price might go to continue doing business as usual. So they offered an alternate, option 2, to just come to town, collect the recycling, and take it wherever we told them to take it, as long as it was within 25 miles of Swarthmore. So that's the first that you can decide on. Republic was the low bidder on rear yard trash collection, assuming you want to keep that, recycling collection without the disposal fee, and yard waste. So that's one thing that you'll vote on tonight. So if you vote to accept those, then of course you have to decide where you're going to go for the reprocessing.
And it was B&L.
B&L, which is our current, used to be called Suburban, now they're B&L. It's the same people who've been here for, I can't even remember now, 15 years. It's the same crew. I mean, it would be the same crew. Schedule would probably stay the same, also includes heavy trash pickup. And there was a slight increase in the fee. There was about $5,000 a year in the trash from what it is this year, about $1,500 in the recycling, and the yard waste was exactly the same. So those costs are pretty minimal increases for 2020. So we did go out to bid. You authorized going out to bid to find out what the processing fees would look like. There are really only 3 MRFs that I knew of that anybody is getting bids from. One is Mascaro, one is Republic, and the other is actually a facility run by Waste Management. And they did not bid, even though I did talk directly to one of their managers, they haven't bid on anybody's recycling processing. Any of the municipalities that have been going out to bid, probably their plant, maybe they're not sure how much material they can take, but for whatever reason they declined to bid. So I sent out the memo today. 2 very, very different bids came in. I have my preference. Ross and I did receive emails today from the Small Recycling Committee. They are not in agreement with my recommendation, and I think Ross is in agreement with me. And I think he can actually probably talk about that more eloquently than I can. So as you'll see, Republic has a bid that's got a lot more variability in it. Could be an upside of sharing some revenue for recycling, but there are many people who believe there will be no revenue from recycling in the next couple of years. One of the nice things is this is a very short-term contract, so we can change our minds and do things very differently in 2 years, which I think could be a benefit. You might know a lot more about recycling by then. So the Republic did not, unfortunately, really provide anything that, as the manager, I could see that would cap what our potential expenses would be. That's awfully difficult to budget for. They didn't say, we promise you that we will not be checking every load to make sure you're not over 15%. They didn't really even say how often they would audit the borough's pile of recycling that literally gets dumped on the floor. Are they going to do that every week? Are they going to do it every month? It was really unclear. And I think there's some time to talk to them about it, but we don't have time now to do it. And there were some other variabilities in their bid. Mascara's bid was very clear. They said they will not change that price in the next 2 years. We can send them whatever we want. If we decide that we want to eliminate an item from our mix, say for instance, we don't want to do cardboard and paper curbside anymore. We want everyone to go to the recycling center. Not saying that we will, just saying it's a possibility. They would still say, yeah, you're not sending us one of our more valuable commodities, but we know the price anyway. So when I looked at the budget, the difference, when I was looking at it, and I think it was at the end of the memo, it was only a $10 per household difference to go between the bids. Between Mascara's $105 a ton, and even the very best case scenario of Republic's, I think it was $72 a ton. So I am without a cap at all from Republic. I think it would be difficult to budget. I think in fact you'd have to budget that higher number anyway because you just have no guarantee that you're really going to be at $72 or $74 a ton, whatever that was. So that's why my conclusions would be to go with Mascara for this short-term contract, continue working with this great recycling committee on how, what's the right thing to be recycling, what's the right way to recycle, and maybe have a different ballgame in a couple of years.
So I agree with Jane, and I want to say that we got really valuable input from this group of people experienced in recycling from the community that we really appreciate. Alan Prindle, Alex Stanovich, Sue Kelly, and William Foster. And Republic came in and gave a detailed presentation. It was a very good presentation, but we did ask them, that they were talking about their process, and they were talking about, they were really unclear. They said at one point that they want to change the price depending on how all of their customers, the quality of all of their customers, not our particular recycling. And we pressed them on that to get clarity. Would it be just limited to them looking at our dump and the quality of ours versus everybody's? And we didn't really get a very clear answer from them. And that can make a really big difference because Swarthmore has a better, they said we have a better quality than a lot of the other people. So, and if you see the actual bid itself, it goes on about, we can change the price if the labor changes, if the market changes, if the price goes up, if the price goes down, if China does something. I mean, it was just this long list of, we can basically change the price any amount that we want at any time. So that looked unfavorable to us. Now, Bill Foster couldn't be here tonight. He would have come in to speak, and he said to me in an email, my opinion and advice for the long term, for what it's worth, is that taking on the marketplace uncertainty of the Republic bid ultimately will be cheaper for Swarthmore than the fixed cost certainty of the Mascara bid. I believe this is for a variety of reasons. He gives about 5 or 6 reasons. But basically what it comes down to is Bill was saying, look, let's sign a contract and then we will actually have to make everybody in the community alter their behavior, otherwise we're going to pay a big penalty for it. And at some point we might want to consider doing that, but I view us as in a transition period right now. It was 2018, and we just heard about the whole world market changing. And we're shifting, we're in a transition phase where we're shifting from B&L takes it all away, and we give them one price, and that's it. And we've gone to the step of now having our own relationship with a processor, which we've not done before. And that processor is willing to give us certainty for 2 years. And we can observe the market over those 2 years. At the end of 2 years, if we're confident that we can alter our stream more or work with the Republic more and hear from other communities how they've worked out, we could change it. So I think this is a good transition step for us, I think. And I think this is what we should do. And we really appreciate the input, and going forward, we will need the help of Alex and Alan and Bill and Sue, because it's not like we want to stop educating people about how to improve the stream. And under this new contract, we actually have flexibility to change things that we might not be able to do under the Republic contract. They might want to insist that we keep the glass or the aluminum or something in. Whereas under this contract, we could mix it. We could peel off some of the stream somewhere else without affecting the price. So, any questions about it?
Yeah, I just have a question about, I'm looking at the materials chain that you sent to everyone, and there's the single bid option sheet, which rather neatly lays out B&L and Mascaro.
That's just the hauling contract.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Under the recycling only collection part of it,
Right.
option 1 is labor, transportation, and disposal. Option 2 is labor and transportation only. So the disposal that is referred to in this chart is not the actual.
Correct. That's right. That's actually, as Ross and I were chatting today, that was almost like a third option. So if you take that difference between those two bids, it's what, I don't have it in front of me, 72 and 100.
Right.
And you figure that out at the amount of tonnage we have, it comes out to about $200 a ton.
That's where
So that was kind of like the third bid. That would have been our worst case scenario.
The worst case.
If we hadn't gone out for a reprocessing bid at all, we would have had to take that because you got to send it somewhere.
If we just did business the way we always have.
The way we're doing it now. It would end up being around $200 a ton.
A ton.
So that would be if we took one of those option 1 bids.
Correct.
Okay. So what you're talking about, what you're proposing now is, I assume, adopting B&L for the labor and transportation and Mascaro for the disposal.
Correct.
Okay, and they're okay with that?
B&L?
Both of them?
Both of them.
Yes, they really have nothing to do with each other. Literally, the B&L people get in their truck and they drive it somewhere. So, and the two facilities are quite close to each other. Mascaro has a facility all the way up in Birdsboro, I think. They have this state-of-the-art recycling facility where they're actually quite excited. I think probably more excited than some people are about the future of recycling. They really believe that everything eventually, this stuff that looks like trash in a bag of Fritos, not with the food in it, can be recycled. They're investing a lot in that technology. That's not where the borough stuff would go. They've also built a transfer station in King of Prussia that's actually apparently a stone's throw away from the Republic facility. Actually, the borough's bid, if B&L were to take it all the way up to their actual facility, would have been less. But it's such a longer way that we would have had that 72 or whatever's in there for the option 2 that you'll probably award tonight. That would have been quite a bit higher because they would have had to transport it another hour north and another hour south. Yeah, so that's something we might want to look at this year, but because we're hearing from other people, it probably added about $10 a ton to our fee.
So you anticipate that the disposal costs will be less than $90,000 a year?
$44,000 a year is what I estimated, yeah. That's 425 tons at $105 a ton.
I think just for clarity, if I just can add, what you're describing, proposing, it would be approximately a $30 per household increase. Yeah, just as a pass-through of trash fees. So that's like 8.3%.
Right, per year, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the part that I'm curious about. We don't have the current numbers on here, but we're saving a substantial amount of money by doing this, yes?
No, everything's more expensive, because remember, in this year's contract, the one that's just ending up now, we were paying, like I have that now, we were paying, B&L, okay, so this year, we were paying B&L 70, this year's cost for recycling was $74,000, but there was no disposal fee in addition to that.
Okay,
They ate the disposal fee.
so this is an increase plus
Correct. It's a straight up increase, no matter how you cut it. We were getting away basically with free disposal before. So they, in the option 2, they are now charging as much just for collection and transportation as they were in the previous contract for collection, transportation, and disposal, because disposal wasn't really costing them anything 4 years ago. They might have been making money.
And what are we currently paying for garbage collection?
It's $5,000 less than what's in that bid, so about 182.
So I'm just sorry, I'm thinking out loud. If we went to curbside garbage collection, we would actually break even on this.
If you went to curbside garbage collection, yes, you would save, you would go up, mascara was the little bit on that, and that would be more than the change in for processing.
Okay, so in the total picture, if we went with your recommendations on the recycling and then adopted curbside garbage collection, there would be no increase
I think that's
to
correct.
homeowners.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Versus a $30 increase.
8.3%,
Yeah.
That's the
And it looks like, again, the leaving the rear yard versus curbside out of it for a moment. If we were just stuck with rear yard, it looks like we'd be going with B&L for collection and transportation across the board.
Correct.
For trash, recycling, and yard waste. And then with Mascaro for the actual processing of the recycling. Is that right?
Right. If you decide to go to, B&L was not the low bidder on
Right.
curbside, so
Right.
that it's a
But
significant.
I'm saying if we stuck with
Yep.
rear yard, it would be B&L doing all the transportation and hauling, and Mascaro doing the processing of the recycling. Okay.
And we did discuss that option. We always discuss that option every year, going to curbside. And in our discussions, we were pushing for that, and I don't recommend that, and I don't think the manager was recommending it. And we did note that this is something that actually benefits seniors tremendously when they have to arrange for somebody to pay for somebody to come and take the garbage out. It's a huge burden. I've had to do that myself with somebody in another state. So it's a big benefit, and we're not recommending that we go to curbside.
Everyone on my street puts their cans on the curb, including at least 3 senior citizen families who live on my street.
That's good.
So I see some audience.
I do, except us. We're the only people on our street who don't put our trash on the
So
front.
we don't really have a sense of how residents would respond to taking their trash out to the curb versus a $30 increase.
There's also the factor that B&L has really done a pretty good job for us over the years. And, we have a high rate of satisfaction.
Well, and if we were going to adopt the curbside option for trash collection, then we'd be contracting with 2 different haulers.
Yes.
Mascaro for curbside trash and then B&L for everything else. I don't know if that, makes life more complicated as well. Not sure, but So, but Ross, it sounds like you were saying that your committee anyway was not recommending moving to curbside.
Correct. So if we're done with discussion, we can discuss it more. Maybe make a motion.
Well, we can have a motion and a second and more discussion.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
so
Okay,
let's,
so I will move that we award the 2020 contract to B&L for the trash collection and transportation, the yard waste transportation and collection, the recycling transportation and collection, and we award the contract for processing the recycling to Mascaro according to the bids that we've discussed. I don't know if we need any more detail on that motion.
Second?
further discussion.
So wait, I'm sorry, one last question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Me.
Yeah, sure.
So this is a 2-year contract.
Correct, with an option for a third if we so.
So we could, the third meaning the same, at the same rates.
They've already, you see, they've given their prices for the third year.
Yeah, okay, actually.
Yeah. So we're not bound.
Right.
We can take the prices they've given us. If things have gotten worse, then that's a favorable price. We can take it. If
Okay.
things have gotten better, we could negotiate for something else.
And we could revisit then if there's some budgetary issue to revisit the curbside versus collection.
Yes, and there could be continuing meetings of the Environment Committee and the EAC and people interested in recycling to see, do we need education programs? Jane, you had mentioned to me earlier about some of the processors are willing to give us educational materials. We did have discussions about education on these various things, about the number, 2s and the number 6s, and how do you do that? I talked about, could we put a sticker on the recycler thing that wasn't going to fly, but there's work to be done about education. And it is somewhat of a moving target, but there is work to be done about education. Did that answer you?
Thank you.
Do we have any sense of how many people actually use the rear yard collection versus putting their cans at the curb?
Everybody on my street.
I mean, everyone on my street has been back. Not your street, rear yard, yeah.
Well, people use, I think it's both. I've noticed though, if you put it out, then they don't put it back.
Right.
Right.
So sometimes that's discouraging for putting it out to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, at my anecdotal, just like everyone else. The route that I take when I walk to work and walk other times is that people are using the rear yard, but clearly that's not the case everywhere.
No, and on my street, everyone does use the rear yard.
Yeah.
I'd say that's true on my street too. I'm sure there are exceptions.
It seems like street by street, everybody else sees their own bringing it out.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
neighbor effect,
Well,
right?
it's less pleasant to bring it out on the
Yeah.
busy streets too.
Right.
Oh, true.
It is interesting, sometimes we get calls from people who are annoyed, longer-term residents, probably annoyed that a new person has moved and put it at the curb because they don't like them, the look that it's sitting on the curb the entire time, and they think that there's a borough ordinance requiring that you not put it at the curb, which I do not believe is the case. People worry about the danger factor, the trash. Somebody told me that the reason the borough went to rear yard trash pickup was because somebody got hit by a trash, they ran into a trash can and it rolled into the street or
And
something.
it actually happened in MP. It happened on 320 going or whatever, but somebody lived here. The spouse of the person who died lived here. But I don't think that, I think
So I thought it had been forever, but this is
it's
like
like
now.
ages and ages
Yeah.
and ages ago.
So we also considered, because each year we do this, we always have this discussion about the rear yard. We always discuss this. And our thinking was, this is a transition year, we're adapting to the China change, and we're doing a whole new thing with the processor, and at the end of 2 years, we can reconsider that.
And there's other things to consider as well, it'd be nice, used to be that pay per bag fee, so that you could encourage people to recycle. Well, now recycling basically costs twice as much as putting in the trash. So, how do you start to incentivize people to really just buy less and see that that's a benefit to the whole community? So I think there's a lot of things to discuss, including, maybe people putting their trash out front will give people a better idea of how much trash there is in the borough, and that will become part of the discussion. So I do agree, 2 years is a really short contract and probably barely enough time to get to all of these issues before we bid for the next contract. So I'm comfortable with the motion. I still feel like there's a lot of unanswered questions on the table, and hopefully we'll have people to look at them.
All right, is there any further discussion? So the motion on the floor is to award the borough's contract for rear yard trash collection for the next 2 years, 2020 and 2021, with an option for a third year to B&L. The recycling, hauling only to B&L, and yard waste collection also to B&L. And then to award a contract for the actual processing of the recyclables that will be delivered by B&L to Oscara. Correct. All in favor, say aye. 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 All opposed? The ayes have it. No, sorry. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. All right, so
I never know how to vote aye, I'm opposed.
Yeah. So we have 6 ayes and 1 nay, and the motion carries.
That is all the business for public works.
Thank you, Ross.
I will just say again, the Public Works Department has never been more in love with a new piece of equipment than they are with that. Has everyone seen that thing driving around? It's a behemoth. It's enormous. It's huge, but they actually got behind at the beginning due to a few weather things, and they're now caught up. They've collected like, what did he tell us today? Because he keeps calling us. Like 185 loads of leaves. Last year at this time, they collected like 70 or something. Now that also has to do with the weather. Thanks to all of you who showered us with pictures of your showering ginkgo trees this weekend. So that was, there were a lot of leaves that came down earlier, but it seems to be working well, and it is so much safer not to have 2 people in the street swinging that hose, raking on leaves. So we still have a raker, but they're not in the same position that they were when they're right at that piece of equipment, so we're really happy.
There are a few times that my neighbors acknowledge that I'm on council, and when the leaves don't get picked up, everyone's asking me what's going on.
It does say right on the website, please be patient, the crew may be 2 days behind. So we know that people want to know, they have landscapers and so on, it's just a question.
It was just weird because I knew we had this fancy new piece of
And
machinery,
now
and the leaves weren't getting picked up, so.
And on the machine, so, because he had said that it's also better for clearing out the storm drains. And
More powerful, or?
Well, they can go out on a rainy day.
Oh.
Yeah,
And,
they worked this morning and they went back.
but in committee, it did lead to a discussion about, we don't have a garage for it, to keep it so it doesn't rust and recover. That's for another day, but we did get into it.
And there was a little.
Because it's so big.
We
It's
just
so
don't have a place to put it.
tough, yeah.
Before we leave Public Works, so did we come to a conclusion, I've forgotten, on the repair of the walls?
Oh,
Next month.
Department.
Next month after I do the
Next
due
month,
diligence.
got it, thank you, okay. All right, thanks, Ross.
thank you.
Marty?
Nothing more.
Thank you. Congratulations, by the way, on your election. Thank you. I reviewed briefly with the gang what your role will be at the reorganizational meeting on January 6th.
And what is it?
You will be the first one sworn in by the district magistrate, and then you will conduct the election of the new council president.
Swearing in.
No, you will conduct the election. In other words, yes.
This is a very heady job.
Yes. Yeah, it'll give you 5 minutes of control over the borough council's agenda.
More than I get now.
And that's it. Yeah. Jamie?
I think I'm gonna wait, I don't know if I'll have anything else, but we'll
Okay.
go back to
All right.
finance, just
All right.
in case.
And Bob is home, oh, I hope it feels better.
Yeah.
And before we get to the very, very, very end, any other business that anyone in council would like to bring up this time?
Are you going to talk about the CCA budget sheet?
He already has
You got that.
The numbers, but
He's
not
got
any
the
more
numbers.
details.
Yeah, that's why, yeah.
Okay, so we'll kind of do that. All
I
right.
think-
Okay, great. Now, for the Finance Committee, and Mike, where do you want to begin?
I guess we'll start with the financial report. Just follow the order of the agenda, and hopefully everyone's had a chance to take a look at it. Not a lot to comment on. Things are going as expected. We're still expecting approximately $400,000 cash balance by the end of the year. At the end of October, the cash balance was $1,273,834. Any questions as it relates to revenues, expenditures for the first 10 months of the year or the remainder of the year? Hearing none, I'll move on to wire transactions and bills to pay. First, I'll make a motion to approve wire transactions totaling $1,485.31 for the month of October.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
Okay, I'll move on for bills to pay for the month through November 6th. I hope everyone's had a chance to look at those bills. I'd like to make a motion to approve bills totaling $559,705.27 through November 6th.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
The lead truck was 200,000, just so people know.
Right, and as soon as the check clears, I've already got the reimbursement request into DEP, they just need the proof that we paid for it, so we're getting
They'll
back
get reimbursed.
whatever the 90% is.
90% of that amount. Fantastic. Any other discussion or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
Okay, next I'm going to move on to the proposed 2020 budget to advertise. Just a couple of changes, obviously we've been talking about some of them tonight. Well, really three to highlight. In terms of the pass-through expenses, we just talked about the trash. If you look at line 4, which is trash fees, currently in the budget is $563,000. Given what we've just passed, that would move up to $610,000. Again, that's an 8.3% increase, $30 per household, and the expense of that is spread through a couple of different line items. But again, it's just a pass-through, so really from the budgetary point of view, it has no impact. I mean, it obviously has an impact for taxpayers, but not as it relates to the millage in the budget. So anyway, so that is a change. And then also, as just previously mentioned, as it relates to sanitary sewer fees, again, this is completely a pass-through, but we don't really have that much say in what it is. I mean, the amount is, instead of $1,073,000, is now going to be $1,154,000, which is about a 7.5% increase. Again, that's totally a pass-through, but people, when they get their tax bill, will see that increase as well as the trash fees. So those are the two items there. And then the third one, which as we already discussed, which is the manager's salary change, would increase the budget deficit from roughly $15,250 to $22,250. Again, relatively small change as it relates to the total size of revenue being over $5 million. So I don't think that's a big change, but just people should be aware of it. I think that's really it that's changed in terms of the budget that we've already discussed. So I'd like to make a motion to advertise the 2020 budget as just discussed. We'll reproduce it with the numbers.
Yeah, I'll send it to everybody
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries, and budget with the changes you mentioned will be advertised.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, as we discussed last week, like to make a, well, first of all, the pension committee recommendations relates to actuarial recommendations from our actuary, if that's one of the words. I'll just quickly summarize that and then make a motion. Essentially, there's three things. One is the investment return assumptions that he's suggesting that we change, and also our investment manager is suggesting that change, which is to lower our investment return expectations for both funds by 25 basis points, or a quarter of 1%. Also, based on history, change the salary increase assumption downward by 0.5% for both plans. And then finally, he's advocating for a change in mortality assumptions based on new tables, new actuarial tables, or just based on new data. So I'm going to make the motion to adopt those recommendations for both the police and non-uniform pension plans. I guess it becomes effective next year. Is it really for 2020? Or
We would give the information to the actuary, and he would use those assumptions in preparation of the 2020 actuarial report, which would affect the MMOs.
For 2020 as well.
2021.
20's already happened. Yeah.
Based on the
Okay.
old assumptions.
So I don't know if that was a clear enough motion. Maybe I'll try to summarize that better. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the recommendations of the actuary for our pension plans.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or comments? Ross?
One question, so when we changed the assumption from 3 to 2.5 on the cost of living increases, do we have to follow that then in the future? In other words, do we have to then give 2.5 in the future to match the assumption?
No, it's completely they're not related, even though in theory they are. I mean, he's just basically looking at the last, I think it was 8 years or 10 years of what the actual changes were versus, you know, what we'd given him before. So he's just saying, look, I have this data that says this is what the number is. That's the most reliable thing you have for going forward. And obviously it could change, and if, you know, there's some dramatic changes, we could revisit those assumptions, but they're purely just assumptions.
Right, and what I didn't realize, what he clarified, was that it's not actually the cost of living increase, it's that balanced against the CPI.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we had been doing that, and it was additive to the CPI, and it was way more than was actually happening. So the actuary takes into account base inflation and then what sort of is on top of that. So we're kind of way overestimating it, yeah.
Because right, there's the CPI plus like
Yeah.
people move up in rank and other stuff that happens. So it's a mixture of those things. And so we were just having, in his opinion, and based on the data from the last, I think it was 10 years, was suggesting that, look, this is what the actual history says, we should change it to this. And it helps us in our MMO. Obviously, the return assumptions going down hurts us in the sense of contributing more.
Right.
So it's a little bit offsetting, and then the mortality ones depends. So hopefully that answers the question.
That did.
Any other questions or comments? Now let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries, and we'll adopt those recommendations. Thanks, Mike. Anything else?
And the Finance Committee, unless somebody has something to bring up, will not be meeting this month.
Okay. Jane?
I am kind of speechless, it's unusual for me, as you know. I've had this job almost 30 years, and I really appreciate this council taking the time to listen to what I thought was fair in terms of compensation. It really means a lot to me, but the job itself means as much as anything. I love working with everyone. People keep asking me when I'm retiring, and I say, there's not a day I wake up and don't enjoy going to work, except for today when I knew that the budget might not. Those numbers were going to be following me around. So really, thank you very much. I appreciate it a lot, and on many ways.
Anyway. All right. Well, is there anything else anyone would like to discuss? If not,
You were going to congratulate the mayor.
well, I did.
You wasn't here with me.
But I just did it again. I did it again. But I'm happy.
Your mind was on track.
I'm happy to do it one more time. Congratulations again to Mary and Ross, and to Jill, and to
And all
Marty.
my grandchildren, you can say that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, of course, that's,
Had to get that in there, you know.
yeah,
I want that to be.
that, above all. So, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And opposed? We're adjourned.